Let's begin by looking at the Vue custom directive disable if not allowed. It's defined with Vue directive followed by its name. The function provided to this directive handles binding the element when it's created. Inside this function, we first retrieve the user's permissions given to the directive, which are passed as a value. Next, on the element itself, such as a button or input, we look for an attribute named required permission. This attribute should hold the permission needed to enable the element. If the user's permissions do not include this required permission, then the directive will set the disabled property of the element to true, effectively disabling it. This mechanism ensures that only users with the necessary permissions can interact with certain elements in the Vue application. Now let's examine how to use this directive within an HTML template. You apply the directive to an HTML element, like a button, using the v prefix followed by the name of the directive. Here, we provide an array of permissions, in this case read and write, to the directive using Vue's binding syntax. These represent the user's current permissions. We also define a required permission attribute on the button and set its value to edit. This button will be disabled because the user does not have the edit permission among the provided permissions. This directive can be very flexible and powerful in a real-world application. You can manage user interaction and enforce permission-based UI elements in an easily readable and maintainable way. For example, you can disable editing features for users who can only view content or hide administrative functionalities from regular users. One important thing to note is that directives in Vue are reactive. This means that if the user's permissions change, the directive will automatically re-evaluate and apply the updated logic to the element. This could be particularly useful in applications where permissions are dynamically managed and can be updated on the fly, providing an instantaneous UI feedback according to the user's current abilities. Additionally, when working with complex applications, a good practice is to abstract permission logic into a dedicated service or a store. The directive could then request the necessary permission information from this centralized service, rather than managing them locally, thus staying in line with the single source of truth principle. Finally, remember that while disabling an element can signal to users that they don't have permission to use it, this should not be your only line of defense. Permissions should also be enforced on the back end to prevent unauthorized actions even if someone were to bypass the UI constraints through browser developer tools or other means.